Welcome back to the game. I'm Mark Simon. Over here we have Assemblyman Rich Gordon, who's been kind enough to join us today. We were talking about the state budget. Everything really hinges on the governor's tax measure. What's your sense of that piece of legislation? Is it fair? It reminds me of the line from the novel All the King's Men. We're going to soak the fat boys and spread it out thin. Is it really fair? Is this the right way to go about trying to balance the state budget?
Well, the measure has a combination. It has an slight increase in sales tax, which impacts everybody. And then it has an increase on those in our society here in California who are doing the very best in terms of their financial situation. I think that's fair. And I think what makes it even more fair is the fact that it is for temporary purposes. So these taxes expire. The sales tax at 5 years, the income tax at 7. So there's a time limit to this. And that again goes back to the fact that we're trying to solve the structural deficit that gives us the time to continue to restructure state government, to make additional changes, and to get our house back in order.
I guess the question is, why should the public trust that that's what's going to happen? We talked at the top of the show about the low public opinion about the legislature. You talked a little bit about some of the difficult and partisan environment that it's up there. Why should we think this is going to do any better, even if you have some time to do it? I can envision a scenario where the economy rebounds dramatically. Suddenly there's lots of money and nobody fixes anything.
Well, I think that if we don't trust that this is going to work, then we might as well give up on California. Mm-hmm. I certainly understand the cynicism that exists at the moment in our society. There's this great sense that no one is working on our behalf, that we're kind of alone and struggling in our own homes and in our own financial situation. But at some point, we have to take a leap of faith. We have to trust that this is going to work. And we have to hold our elected officials accountable to that. If I don't produce the kinds of changes that need to occur, then folks ought to kick me out of office.
Well, one of the things that undermines what you're saying and enhances the cynicism is something like what happened with the state parks rainy day fund and the $54 million. I don't know how they would define a rainy day if they hadn't just been through one where they had to resort to private fundraising to keep some of these treasured state parks open. But that's got to be something that just makes you cringe.
Oh, it makes me stark raving crazy. Even more so in that I chair the budget committee that oversees the parks. And in a budget hearing this past spring, I said to the director of parks, I'm kind of struggling to understand your budget because it seems to me that we ought to be bringing in more fees at the entry gate than we're currently doing. Well, it turns out we were.
And they were just squirreling
They just hadn't been reported.
Wow.
And I think that the lesson to be learned here is twofold. One, there's a disconnect in our state administration between various functions. The folks who account for the money aren't the same folks who do the budgeting. And they weren't communicating with each other. The other dynamic is that I've been calling for, and as part of what I think needs to be appropriate budget reform, more scrutiny by the legislature. Let's dig deeper. Let's ask more questions. Let's take more time. I've done that in my budget subcommittee. I'm going to continue to do that as a member of the budget committee.
The other thing where you hear the cynicism expressed is in the public employee pensions. They threatened to bankrupt a lot of public agencies, not just the state government. You see some agencies that are making employees pay the employee share, which always sounds like a discordant note for somebody in private enterprise because they're paying the full employee share. Is this the next big wave? If the legislature doesn't do something about this soon, what are the consequences budgetarily and also politically?
Well, it is something that has to be resolved. And I, for one, believe that before the end of August, there will be a legislative package adopted. It will be based on the principles laid out by the governor in a 12-point plan which I think go a long way to providing reform. There's some other things I would probably want to add to that, and I know that there are others who are going to want to adjust some of that. We've had a conference committee working on this issue. Their report will be presented to us in August, and there'll be something for us to vote and discuss.
Are the pensions too rich?
Candidly, not for the average employee. When statewide, an average public employee is getting about $30,000 a year in pension if they retire. The real problem is at the extremes. Mm-hmm. And there have been excesses. There's been spiking of pensions. That's where I think the major problem is. I also happen to think that we have to have employees participating more in this system. They need a stake in the game.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about one of your other positions, which is chair of the LGBT caucus. Two recent public figures disclosed they were gay, Anderson Cooper, it was disclosed, and Sally Ride. But what was interesting about it, given your own personal history and how you had to go about disclosing that when you first ran for office, is that it was much more sort of low-key, matter of fact. Anderson Cooper sort of said it almost offhandedly, and it only came out after Sally Ride passed away, but it wasn't about, oh, it was a revelation, so much as, oh yeah, she had been all along and just didn't feel compelled to make an issue of it, nor make a secret of it. And I wondered if there are those in the gay community who say, oh no, they should have been public, they should have been continuing the pioneering effort. But I wonder if the dynamic is changing and it is more of a sort of offhand, matter of fact, just the way life is sort of a thing.
Well, I think certainly here in California, one of the things that has happened is that as gay and lesbian individuals have been more and more open, people understand that we are your neighbors, your friends, participants in the community, participants in our economy, and there's a level of awareness that is different when folks hide. And so I think those who courageously came out in the early parts of the gay and lesbian strive for human rights and equality have given us a platform that others now stand on.
Yeah. You married your partner Denny in 2008. In fact, your anniversary is just a little more than a month away. You better not forget.
It's on the calendar.
2 months later, Prop 8 passed, and I know that was part of what prompted you to do to get married when you did. Mm-hmm. Will same-sex marriage be legal in California, and how soon do you think that might happen?
I believe that we are on a path where same-sex marriage will be legal in the United States. I candidly have to tell you that I never thought that this would happen in my lifetime. And so the speed at which this is beginning to shift and the speed at which public opinion has shifted, I think partially goes back to what I talked about in terms of folks knowing gay and lesbian people. I think that's made a huge difference. And I also think that the attitudes of younger people have made a huge difference.
I have to stop you there. Rich Gordon, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for being with us. Join us next time on The Game.